Hey friends, welcome back to the Gentle and Lowly Co podcast. I'm Addie Ott, your host, and today we'll be talking about all the things I say to God. But first, on the podcast today is my friend Tanner Olson. Tanner, welcome back to the podcast.
It's so good to be back. How
Yeah.
many repeating guests have you had?
Okay, there's Lydia Moser. She's been repeating, and maybe there's you and maybe one other person. It's not that many. So
Exclusive, I'd say.
yeah, we have like a club that I'm not going to drop the name yet, but when you get to like 5 episodes, then you kind of get a fun thing.
Oh,
So
oh, I am
you'll
all
be
about
there.
this.
Yes, it's so fun. But I'm really excited to have you back on the podcast and it's so pumped to talk about your book. But first, if people are like, who are you? Just share what the season of life looks like for you right now.
Yeah, if they're like, who was this guy? That is
Yeah.
a totally fair thing to ask because I also wonder most days. When people ask me what I do for work or who I am, I tell them that I'm an author, a poet, and a speaker. So I write books. I travel around the country and share spoken word poetry and stories and jokes. And I have 4 books out, a children's book that's about to release, and then another book of poems and essays that's coming out with the HarperCollins family in February. So I am all the things with words, and I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah.
That's really it. Like I'm just a
Yes.
dude who writes a lot of words and puts them on the internet, and somehow
Yeah.
this has become a job, and I am so thankful.
I'm so thankful. Yes. Ah, so good. Well, I was a fan first before we became friends. And I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of my friends, it's been cool to see like how much of a community it is just like through words and just, yeah, I don't know, like you have really good things you have on Instagram. They're just so practical for the daily life. And I feel like you
Hmm.
share it every week, how to get through Monday to Friday or whatever, like Sunday to Saturday. But I just love it because it's practical, but it's also just so applicable. And
Hmm.
I think like sometimes we can overcomplicate a lot of things, and there's just a beauty and simplicity. And that might be a little foreshadowing in our conversation, but it is really cool how God can just take the passions and the things we love to do and make it a job. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the thing about it is like what we do is not for everybody, but this is
true.
the
Yeah,
thing that we believe that God has invited us to do. For you, it's like, to hold these conversations, to write books, to share insights on faith and life and being a human being. And then I do very similar work as you do, but in a different direction, still
yeah,
same faith. But it's interesting that the things that you create, the things that you come up with, the things that you offer to the world, and how that reaches different people
yeah.
and invites them to keep going or to dig deeper or to believe that God truly is who he says he is.
Right. Yeah. Oh man. And that's a reminder I think we need every single day. But it like stirs so much faith in me when it's just all those connections and those threads. And you're like, wow, God is so much bigger than us. Like, and he's the one doing the work. And it's just it blows our minds so much. But I think, and maybe I don't think we should ever lose that wonder. And so that's
Hmm.
like, I feel like that's why we write. That's why we do this. So, oh,
Yep.
it's so
I'm
good.
with you.
Yeah.
I'm totally
Okay.
with you. Yep.
100%. So I guess speaking of writing a little bit,
Mhm.
we're going to go into music of the week. Different type of writing, but for music of the week, what songs kind of stood out for you this week?
I'm bringing 2 to the table this
Okay.
week.
Love it.
And one is a song called I See the Birds
Okay.
by my buddy Jon Guerra.
Yes.
Uh,
Oh my
it
gosh. Yeah.
is,
Huge
and
fan.
I was just on another
Yeah.
podcast a couple weeks, not a minute, but on a couple on a podcast, and so they asked me the same question. I was like, I
Yeah.
See the Birds by Jon Guerra. And I think this song, I'm going to say this for like the rest of my life. It's one of those songs where when I feel overwhelmed or
Mm.
anxious or tired or just like
Yeah.
meh, it
Mm.
is the song that picks me up, that keeps me going. I had the chance to open up for John a couple weeks ago here in Nashville, and I got to see him play the song live. And I just wanted to sit there and weep.
Yeah.
Uh, so
Wow.
I did. But and then the other song is from the artist Amanda Cook.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
I her song There's Nothing.
So
I just discovered it, and it's always sounds so weird when you're like, and I discovered this song. It's been
right.
out for a while, but it came
But
across my one of my playlists, and I just stopped and I just so those 2 songs I have on repeat. There's Nothing by Amanda
oh,
Cook, and I See
so
the
good.
Birds by Jon Guerra. And if you make a little 2 song playlist, let
Yeah,
those babies rip, you are going to have
that's
yourself a
it.
day.
Oh, that's so
Am
good.
just, yeah. What about you? What do you got going on?
Okay. Well, first, is that from John's new album? The one that's really
Hmm.
colorful? Okay.
Yeah,
I just,
it's titled
yeah.
Jesus, which is a very bold
Yeah.
title for an album.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's so good. I haven't listened to the whole album yet, but the one song that's standing out to me so far is The Lord is My Shepherd. I mentioned that in last week's podcast. And oh my gosh, I feel like it can just like wreck you. And so
Hmm.
I've listened to a lot of his older stuff.
Yeah.
And I know the album cover, it's like him, it's like black and white and like a jacket. And it's just like
Yep.
I Will Follow You. And they're just some
Yep.
really good, good, beautiful songs and lyrics. But this week, it's honestly been like a lot of like worship songs, but not in like the typical way where it's like 5 minutes or 4 minutes. It's like the 8 minute extended songs.
Yeah.
And so it's just like you're really like not just getting into it, but if you need like a pocket of God's peace and just a moment to remember like what it means to abide in Him and to remain, and just honestly like a really good reminder of the gospel. In I kind of talked about there's just a lot of things in my calendar kind of in the season. And so it's like, okay, where can I find that maybe when I'm just driving or maybe when I park my car when I get home and just like let it wash over you. So there's two songs that I've like been kind of going on repeat. It's Tend, it's the live edition. So the album cover, it's like green and it kind of reminds me just like of emerald and just really beautiful and just that garden. And so it's by Emmy Rose and Bethel Music. And again, it's super long, but it's like you don't get tired of it. You're like, wait, I want to keep going. Just so funny. But then I'll Fall Down, again, another live version. You got to have some time for these, but by the Belonging Co. and Henry Seeley. And oh man, I sometimes you can't really express it with words. It's just a really good worship song that you're like, this is just what I need in this season. And that's what it is. And God
Oh,
meets you there.
I'm looking them up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna listen to them later.
Okay. They're
It's
good.
great.
They're really good. You can like either crank it in your house or like have it really peaceful, like even like in a library or like in your car. And so it's like it can go either way, like whatever you want to do, sit and worship or like, be really excited and all about it. So a lot of fun.
Amazing.
But yeah,
Yeah.
we will swip the songs and we'll add them to the playlist for this week, which is so fun. Those are really good recommendations. A lot of fun. Okay. So for theme of the week, what kind of patterns have stood out to you, Tanner, for this past week?
Oh, not sleeping.
I
Is that a
feel
pattern? Can we talk
that's
about that?
yeah. Yeah,
Um,
especially you guys are still young parents too.
we're young parents.
Yeah.
Judah is 18 months old and is a ton
Oh,
of fun. Here's the thing. People are like, oh, when I tell people like I'm not sleeping well, they're like, oh, is it because of Judah? No, he
no.
sleeps
Oh,
fine. He's a great sleeper.
okay,
I
good.
am just like, oh, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. I guess I'm done sleeping. Guess I'm
Like,
gonna get up.
okay.
Guess I'm gonna get
Yeah.
some work. But honestly, it's one of my favorite. Like now, it's just kind of built into my schedule. Like I'm
Mm,
gonna wake up early, and that's honestly my favorite time of the day is where I
mm,
get to just sit and be and write and pray and drink coffee in a very quiet and still house,
mm.
because I know that as soon as Judah wakes up, like
Yeah.
we're just going,
It's go time.
and
Yeah.
it's the best. It is
Yeah.
the absolute best. But also, when you both work from home and you have a small child, you kind of have to work
Yeah.
so that you can keep
Right.
having a home for a
Yeah.
small child.
Yes, and keeping the small child happy and all the
Yeah.
things. Yeah. No, that's kind of funny that people are like, oh, yeah, it's because of Judah. But actually, no,
Absolutely not.
it can just
No,
be whatever is going on. And I get
it's
that.
just because I'm
Yeah.
old. That's because I'm
Hey,
old.
it's okay, but I think it's cool that, it's all about our perspective. So you could be like, kind of going to the Lord and be like, why is this happening? Asking all the why questions. And you've really flipped it of being like, okay, if I'm up at
Yeah.
this time, this is a gift. What am I supposed to do
Hmm.
with it, Lord?
Hmm.
And drawing near to Him. And I think that's a really beautiful reminder to have those pockets of like just the quiet and His peace where we're just resting in God's peace. And,
Yep.
hopefully there's no phone and you're just literally going before him. You know what I mean? It's hard to do
The
that.
hope is that there
So
is
good.
always no phone.
I know.
Like there's never right now, I'm so proud about this. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna have to brag on
Okay.
your podcast. My phone's in my pocket. It's not even on the table.
That is so impressive because
It'd be
mine's in
even
the
better
drawer.
if it was like
Yeah.
in a different
In a
room or
drawer.
in the
Yeah.
trash, but like
In the
out
trash.
of
Yes.
sight, out of mind. It's my
Oh my
favorite.
God.
Like I know I'm actually getting something done or I'm being
Yes.
present
Oh,
when I don't
so
even
good.
like see my phone.
Hey,
you know?
yeah, I totally feel that. Well, this is kind of funny. This is a little, not foreshadowing, but I'm taking like a Sabbath for May just for Gentle and Lowly Co. Still working my full-time stuff, but like a
Yep.
digital Sabbath. And Tanner, this, I haven't said this yet, but I have gone to home phone, like a landline again. It's just so funny. Not
That's
funny, but it's so fun. I'm really excited
that's
about it.
sounds expensive,
No,
but pretty
it's
cool.
not. No, it's not at all. We can talk about it later. It's like you only pay the taxes. It's like less than $10 a month. It's so cool. And so it's just going to be for like close friends and family and just have like more work boundaries on my phone and just being present. I think that's something that God's just reminding me of.
Yeah,
Like, let's not get distracted and really be present and sit and just, yeah, focus on what we're supposed to do right in the moment and not try to do all these other things.
that's great.
I really want us to be people, if we talk about Sabbath, we're actually going to do it. And so
Hmm.
that's why we're doing it. But all that to say, though, I totally agree about all the phone things. But this past week, kind of relating to being present, this was like so much fun. And I think maybe it's because Indiana, we're getting warmer. And so it's like, oh, we can go do
Hmm.
things and, not freeze when you go outside. But my friend and I, we attended a local trivia night at like our pizza place and it was for Gilmore Girls. And if you're
All
watching
right.
that show, I don't know if Sarah does, but
Oh,
if she
she
does,
doesn't watch it.
oh
I
my
do.
gosh. Okay. I was like, oh, come on. But it's such a fun show. I love it so much. But it was a lot of fun, just like going to trivia. And then later in the week, I met up with my brother and my soon-to-be sister-in-law and my mom, and we went to see Nacho Libre, which you know that movie.
Yeah. Well,
Classic.
is in the theaters?
Yeah, it was so
No
so
way.
so the Art Craft Theater in Franklin, Indiana is this nonprofit. They've kind of like refurbished it and so it continues and it's like all kind of vintage. They show films in 35 millimeter. It's the coolest thing, Tanner. It's so fun.
No way.
It's epic. You
That's
could have
cool.
an event there, I'm pretty sure. Like
What's it called?
the Art Craft Theater. Yes.
Okay.
It is seriously one of my favorite things to do. So over the years, like my mom and I have gone to see Elf in 35 millimeter, go to see Hoosiers, which is like a classic Indiana staple. So there's just like those moments of just, just having fun. And
Yeah.
sometimes a lot of those moments of fun, it kind of ties back into the simpler time when we were a kid and we just got to laugh and just have fun. And so it just brought some of those memories, especially with being with my brother. Like we watched that movie growing up. And just
Yeah.
to not take those moments for granted and kind of like what you said, you're just happy to be there, literally.
Just happy to be there. We're
Yeah,
just
eat some
doing it.
popcorn. Yeah, which is
Yeah.
good. So,
That sounds like
yeah,
a nice week.
it was really
Yeah.
fun. It's like eating pizza with some friends, eating popcorn, and just getting to go into the weekend. Like, what is better than that? So, really fun. And I feel like, again, on this theme, our main topic, we're going to talk about your book, All the Things I Say to God. But it does kind of relate to being present and honestly like taking the things that are in our days to God, taking all the things that we can talk to him
Hmm.
about anything and everything. And so at first, before we get into our questions, I just want to say here, I already told you, but like I love this book. I think it's so fun. It's really cute. And also the illustration, shout out to the illustrator. She
Hmm.
did such a good job. Anita, is that right?
Yep.
Her name? Yes.
Anita. Yeah. Crushed it.
I loved it so much. And also, the dog looks like Pancake.
It does.
Yes,
Yeah.
Pancake.
So the backstory
Pancake.
on that
Yeah.
pancake, yeah, we when we were going through the process of like the early illustrations of the book,
Yeah.
like it's kind of getting mapped out.
Mhm.
I was like, there's a dog written into the story of the book.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Do you have any ideas as to what the dog should look like?" And I said, I sent over like a photo album of Pancake, and I said it needs to look just like this
Like
dog.
this dog.
And
Yes.
they're like, "Okay, we can do that. That works
Yeah.
for us. Perfect."
Well, I love that little Easter egg because if people follow you, again,
Yeah,
I'm like, I'm here for the pancake content because Kodak,
yeah,
doodles.
yeah. There's
Doodle
a
buds.
I
Yeah.
think if people follow my work or have like listened to interviews with me, it's like they're gonna
Yeah.
pick up on all these small little things kind of throughout
Things.
the book where
Mhm.
you kind of write yourself into the
Yes.
story, no matter what you do as like a writer. It's like, oh, that's a little piece of me,
Yeah.
a little another piece of me,
Mhm.
and Pancake is definitely a big piece of me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Hands down. So, for the message, it's really about prayer. So, why is this message, though, both important for kids and adults today in just our days?
Yeah. So when I was writing the book, I really wanted to give something to my kids' friends
Mm,
that they could read with their children. And so when Right. And now, and so I wrote this before Judah was born. I wrote this as I was watching my friends be parents.
Mm.
And I wanted to write a book that wasn't just for the kids, but it was also for the adults. Because anytime that I've read a book with my friends' kids, and I was like, this book has nothing to do with me. So
Yeah.
we're just going to get to this and see if there's another one. So I
Yeah.
wanted to write something that was applicable to both the child and the adult who was reading it with them, something that they could walk away and be like, oh, yeah, I needed that reminder. And
Mm.
something for the child, for the kid to be like, yeah, this, oh, so I can pray to God about anything, anytime,
Yeah.
anywhere. The book itself is kind of like a mirror image of like a children's message at church. I don't know if you've ever been to a church before where the pastor or youth pastor is like, hey,
Yeah.
all the kids come on up and I'm gonna give like there's gonna be like a mini sermon, a children's message just for the kids, and it's 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes long. But
Mm.
half the time the adults watching take away a lot just from that short
Yeah.
little message. And so that
Hmm.
was kind of the idea for this book, was that it would be something for parents to be reminded of
Mm.
like, oh, I know this to be true. Like I know that I can pray to God anywhere,
Yeah.
anytime and about anything. And then for the child, for
Mm.
their child to be like, wait, so I can talk to God all the time about anything, and then for them to come together as a family and begin to pray more, to have more conversations about prayer, and so that when they're older and as they continue to grow, that prayer wouldn't be this far off, distant thing,
Hmm.
but it would be normal
Yeah.
because as extraordinary as prayer is, it is it's such a normal thing.
Hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that because well, one, I know I told you and our friends on the podcast know I'm in the process of writing my second book about prayer,
Mhm,
and that's why I was like, I already knew I was going to love this book, but sometimes we can feel like there are so many things we have to do right, in order to pray, or it's only over here, like in our
mhm,
special chair, and we leave it there. But like
mhm,
because we have the Holy Spirit, like God is with us everywhere. We can talk to him and I love even like in the book, there's even a part where it's just about the quiet and we don't have
mhm.
to pray anything and we can listen
Yeah.
or we can just hear or just be reminded of God's love for us. And
Mhm,
sometimes those are like the best prayers. And I think those simple truths, if you've been following Jesus for, even a couple weeks or months or even years, but especially years, I think we need to be reminded of like it's not as complicated sometimes as we make it out to be. We just come to him as we are. And I think this book does that.
yeah, it wasn't like God created prayer and was like, now I'm gonna trick you.
Yeah.
It was like,
Gotta
no,
jump through these hoops.
I want to hear from you. I want
Yeah.
to talk with you. And so it's not one of those things where you have to, one of the things that always makes me smile, and maybe that means it bugs me a little bit, is when someone's like, "Oh, I'm not very good at praying."
Yeah.
Like, well, it's not like
I'm
it's
like,
not a
what?
contest.
Yeah, right?
We're
It's
not
a
running we're
competition.
not playing a game. It's like
Yeah.
you what do you mean you're not good at
Hmm.
talking to your creator? Like, don't
Right.
judge yourself on that. Just
Yeah.
lean into it. And
Yeah.
so when people say things like, I can't pray, or I never seem to pray the right words, it's like, well, you can do it. And it's the invitation over and over again. And I think if we let our kids begin to pray what is on their heart, what is on their mind, what it is that they want to say. And like I think it's the book does the point of this book is to help prompt them to do so, right? So what are you thankful for? What questions are you asking? What if you don't have anything to say? What do you do then?
Mm.
But then to build this foundation of prayer as they continue to grow and mature,
Mhm.
and as you continue to grow and mature, life just gets harder.
Yeah.
It gets more difficult. And
Does.
but the adult who prays is a
Mm.
dangerous adult, you
That
know?
is so true. Oh my gosh. So I love that. And kind of like on the theme of extending invitations or inviting, our kids into that. So if you're in a season like me, kind of like where you were when you wrote this book, where
Mhm.
all of your friends are having kids. So those of us where we have younger kids in our lives, how do we invite them into this, or how can we model this for them?
I think you start by buying dozens and dozens of copies of the book.
So many copies
So
and
many
give them
copies of the
away.
book.
Yes, I agree with
Well,
that.
I think it's one of those things of like when you read through this book, and when you get to know the character Abby, so
Mhm.
close to your name, so sorry. But
No.
when you get to know Abby, we begin to see that she's curious,
Hmm.
that she's full of whimsy, that she's interested in who God is, that she's blown away by the fact that she gets to have a conversation, that she gets to talk to God of the universe. And so I think when we're hanging out with our friends' kids, that when Mr. Tanner or Uncle Tanner gets to come
Yeah.
along and spend time with them,
Yep.
it's not a strange thing to be like, what have you been praying about?
I
It
love
is
that.
not like because kids they're just like, oh, I'm just hanging out with my uncle or with my
Yeah.
friend or with my parents' friend. Like,
Hmm.
oh, and he's curious. I'm curious.
Yeah.
I want to know things too.
Hmm.
Um, and I think, just prompting kids to pray by themselves, to talk to God. I read this book for a group a while back, and afterwards, some parents came up to me and they were like, "Well, we're going to buy the book." And I said, "That's a great start." They said, "Well, the reason why we want to buy it is we have four kids, and every time we say, 'All right, you say the prayer,' they either get
Hmm.
really, really quiet, or they'll say a prayer that they have memorized, which isn't a bad
Right.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we want for our kids to
Mhm.
be able to express themselves to God through their words,
Yep.
to speak to Him from their thoughts, from their feelings, their emotions, from what's going on inside, and to bring that on the outside. Um, and I think that's like the big hope for this book is that for kids to find their voice as they pray.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't agree more. And I love, again, how simple it is. It's while you're maybe reading another book or playing or just outside, I don't know, doing a scavenger hunt, whatever it is, and being just
Yeah,
like, hey, what's going on? Or like, have you talked to God lately? It's like asking, how's your other friend doing?
yeah,
Yeah.
and that feels like a very much so like a intentional discipleship
Mm,
question that you would ask
yeah.
someone that you're
Yeah.
mentoring, or have someone who's mentoring you ask you of, what have you been praying about?
Yeah.
Or
Oh,
what is
absolutely.
or what has God been teaching you recently? Or
Hmm.
what's the thing that you're wrestling with? And so I think it's totally a fair question to ask kids, what have you
Yeah.
been praying about?
Yeah.
And I think they're going to blow you away with their answers.
I know.
Or if they're like, I don't know, well, I don't know what to pray about. Be like, well, did you know that you can
Well,
talk to God about anything?
anything? Yeah.
Oh,
And just keep that
yeah.
conversation going. Yeah, open
Yeah.
it opens that door and gives them permission or access to be like, actually, I have some questions, or how do I do
Mhm.
this? And that's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing because they want to try and they want to learn, and kids are just really brave like that, I think, and that's a beautiful
Oh,
thing to
I wish I
remember.
was still as brave as a kid is.
Yeah.
They're
Oh my
they're
gosh.
amazing. And the
So
prayers
good.
that they pray are the
So
most
cool.
sincere,
Yeah.
beautiful,
Hmm.
odd,
Yeah, that's
but
true.
they're great. It's just like, oh, I get to say talk to God about anything. Well,
Mhm.
thanks God for snails and for sprinkles. That
Yeah,
is the entire prayer. But I
that's
like
it.
both of those things right now. So,
Yeah.
it's great.
It's so good. Oh my gosh. I love that. So, in writing a book about prayer, was there anything that kind of surprised you during this process? I mean, the fact that, I don't know, I feel like you probably already know it can be this simple, but was
Mhm.
there anything that really did surprise you? You're like, oh, I haven't thought about it in this light before.
Yeah, there were a couple of things as I was writing it. So while writing this book, my wife and I had recently been diagnosed with unexplained infertility, which led us to asking and praying
Yeah.
why,
Mm,
how, wrestling through
yeah.
grief and uncertainty and all the heaviness that just comes
Mm,
with news like that. But also
yeah.
knowing that this was not the end, that
Mm,
that God is doing more than we can see.
yep.
And after we got done praying why and how, we moved on and started praying what's next, and
Mm,
that eventually led us to adoption.
mhm.
And then about 2-ish years later, we welcomed Judah home. And so, but by the time Judah uh, arrived, the book was already done. Like I signed the book
Yeah.
contract 2 months before Judah was born, which was
Wow.
insane, which is absolutely crazy, which is such a gift.
Hmm.
But I wrote this before being a dad, and so as I was writing it, I was thinking a lot about um, like you know being Mr. Tanner, being
Mm.
Uncle Tanner. What can I write that's going to connect with them? And then what did I need to hear when I was 5? six,
Yeah.
7. So I thought about a lot about younger me as I was writing this, and one of the things that really did surprise me as I was putting these words down was um, that I wanted to have a section where it's just dedicated to not knowing what to say.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
know, because I think, sometimes kids are just they're like they're just so bold enough to be like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say, or I don't have anything to say. And then when we talk about prayer as this is a conversation with God, which is what it is,
Mm-hmm.
what if we don't have anything to say? Well, that means that maybe that means that I'm doing it wrong or something is wrong with me. And that's not true at all. That
Yeah.
just means you don't have anything to say. Does that mean that God is no longer with you? Absolutely not.
Oh,
Does that mean that God is not with you in the silence? He's right there, and so I think that that section of the book is
mm,
really the thing that younger me needed to needed to remember.
yeah.
Um, because silence is a beautiful prayer. And I feel like I
Mhm.
spend a lot of time just sitting, um, knowing that God is right there with me, whether that's while I'm driving or while I'm walking or just like
Mm.
doing chores around the house. I used to be like, I gotta have music on or a podcast, and podcasts are great to have on. This
Yeah.
is a great podcast to have on while you do things. But maybe after the podcast, you're like, well, maybe I can just be
Mm.
with the stillness and be with the silence
Yeah.
and lean into prayer that way.
hmm Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good reminder, especially as kind of we talked about in the theme of the week of how many distractions and noises and I have two screens here, I have another monitor and then the phone and it's
You're
like
insane.
there's so many things, but you gotta be able to do the creative work, all the
Yeah,
different
yeah,
things,
yeah,
all the
yeah,
different
yeah, yeah.
windows. But it is like I think it is a fight for the believer to kind of take that stewardship of your soul and to
Hmm.
tend to it in that way of like, can I tune out the noise? And if silence like terrifies you, I know I have some of my friends where they're like, I'm gonna keep talking in the conversation because they're like, it can't go anything else. Then I've encouraged a lot of friends, then just put on some instrumental music. If you have to have something on, but instrumental. And then that also does something to your mind, I think, where you're not focusing on something else and it just kind of blends in the background. And you can also just focus maybe on
Hmm.
writing or just maybe talking if you have to talk it out too. But I do think like that is something that our attention is such a valuable asset and just such a gift to people. And why would we want to give that gift back to him? And like that's probably like that's the greatest gift we could give him is just sitting with him.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah,
good.
yeah, it's an under your attention is an underrated gift.
Yeah.
It's always appreciated. It's kind of like I'm sure you've had many conversation about, when you're talking with somebody or you're with a group of friends, and then all of a sudden one person pulls out their phone.
Yep.
You're like, well, this is over.
This is it.
It's like
Yep.
everyone's gone for a minute. We have to take a
Gotta
quick hit of our
recircle
phone
it.
and then we'll
Yep.
come right back. And
Yep.
it's just,
It takes like 30 more minutes to get back to what you're talking
yep, it's so hard. It's so hard. But if,
about. Oh
and,
gosh,
and
yeah.
that's part of it too, is like when you
Yeah.
come to the table or when you sit,
hmm
like get rid of those distractions so that you can
Mm,
just be right where you are. And I
yeah.
am often not great at that. And some days I am great at
Hey,
that. And those are my
hey.
favorite days.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen to that. I know. That's why we practice it. Is we can get better at it too. Well, I do love that it is a book and there's no screens. I think that's why we still love books that are tangible and physical. I mean, it helps us slow down in that way. And at the end of the book, I don't want to spoil it too much, but you do have a section just for parents, I think, to kind
Hmm.
of help them integrate this into their, daily rhythms where
Yeah.
it's not just a book. It's okay, how can I do this well? How can I do this prayer well? And I honestly I really love the language that you used. You gave some simple prayers, but also like the meaningfulness of like how prayer shaped your life. Could you
Hmm.
talk a little bit about how your parents modeled that and how it was a huge practice for you that it kind of has continued into, today as an adult?
Yeah. My parents were really great at modeling for us, just modeling for us what it looks like to pray.
Mm,
My mom and dad are I'm very different. Like I am
yeah.
definitely the different one in the family. I'm the talker, and they are both they're quiet folks,
Mm,
keep to themselves, um, but they don't stay to themselves. And every night before bed, we would gather together in the hallway as a family, and we would just say a prayer before we'd sleep.
Mm.
We'd always pray. We'd pray before meals and we'd pray at church as well. But it was always an encouragement to pray on our own
Yeah.
as well. It
Mm.
was never like a prayer was never a weird thing in our house. It
Mm.
was always just part of who we were.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's one of the reasons why I feel like I have a healthy relationship with prayer, if you can phrase it that way, is
Hmm.
because it was never it was always encouraged and never forced.
Yeah.
It was
Hmm.
always just, it's just a beautiful thing that we get to talk to the God of the universe, that he hears us. And, anytime we talk about prayer, anytime the church talks about prayer, we always talk about how prayer is powerful. And there's a reason why we talk about that. It's because it's true. It's
Mm.
because that when we pray, our hearts change, our minds change, our outlook on the world change. God
Hmm.
hears us. God's moved by our prayers. It's a beautiful thing. And I think that, the big thing is my mom and dad were never like, well, you got to pray like this. They
Hmm.
always were just like, just pray what you got.
Yeah, I think that's so good. And okay, kind of speaking of more of there's different areas and different places like you're praying. So, pray at church, pray at home,
Mhm.
pray by yourself. And I kind of not forgot about this, but I remember that there is a National Day of Prayer. And when I remembered that, I was like, oh yeah, I used to do that at my private Christian high school. So it was a Christian
Mhm.
school, but we used to do that every year, and we would kind of like, it was the see you at the pole and gather around. And I do remember that there were some really impactful times, and it was meaningful to me at the older I got, but also being younger. And we did see how it shaped our community, like for that
Mhm.
day, and kind of extended into some of those weeks. Because that is coming up on May 1st, so the book will be out when that happens. How
Yeah.
can families just help use this book to help their children understand the importance of prayer, kind of even like as there's a national day about it? How can we help introduce that conversation maybe on that day with this book?
Yeah, I think that we can talk about this book in a lot of different ways. Um, but the big word that I want to use when talking about it is just, well, there's two words. It's a reminder and it's an invitation,
Yeah.
right? That the reminder is that we get to talk to God about anything, anytime, anywhere. And the invitation is that you are invited to talk to God. He is not far off or distant, but he is here and he is listening. So whether it's on the National Day of Prayer we talk about, or, and I think it's one of those things we talk about day after day.
Yep.
We have these, what are you thankful for today? Well, let's thank
Mhm.
God for it. What questions do you have? Well, let's ask
Yeah.
God those questions. Or, what happened at school today? Well, maybe we need to pray for our friend who pushed us down at the playground, or we need
Yeah.
to ask for forgiveness because we were the friend who
You
pushed
were the
somebody else
friend.
down at the play. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think
That's true.
again, it kind of goes back to speaking about prayer in a way
Mm.
that doesn't make it seem intimidating, that
Yeah.
doesn't make prayer seem like it's something that only pastors or
Mm.
church workers get to do, but it's something that everyone gets to do. That it's this ongoing question that when or conversation that
Mm.
when we say amen, that's not the end.
Right. Yeah.
We're just like we're just get to live out our lives
Mm.
praying and talking with God. And I think it shows kids that prayer is not boring
Yeah. Oh,
and
that's so
prayer
true.
is not a vending machine. It is
Yes.
so much more.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
and then I think the big thing for parents is you get to model that.
Mm.
And who
Yep.
better to model it for than for the younger kids, for the
Yeah.
next generation who is going to be teaching other children how to pray.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
um, I,
Oh,
as an artist, as a creative, as a writer, that when you make something or when you write something and then share it with the world, like the hope that you have for it.
yeah.
Like I don't think I've created something that like this before that I am so excited about, that I'm proud of, and that I think is helpful.
Yeah.
It's not like a self-serving book. Like I
Right.
wrote this for it to be
Yeah.
a resource to families,
Mm-hmm.
and so for kids to come to have a deeper knowledge of who God is. So
Mm.
I'm so
Yeah.
excited about it.
I
It's,
love it.
we're recording this like 15 days from its
Yeah.
release, and
So exciting.
not only am I stressed out, I'm thrilled.
Yeah. Well, I think that's really good. And because it's a good reminder that, yeah, there might be these really big, important days, but it's really inviting and continuing the conversation around the dinner table. So instead
Hmm.
of what was the best part about your day, it can be, what did God do today? Or what have you
Yeah.
talked to God today? And like just pulling that thread in every single moment. And it's again in those in between moments where God meets us. And I love that it's not always on the biggest days. It's in all of the small details. And yeah, man, I think
Yeah.
it's so good, Tanner. And I know that this book is, you know, as you're saying, like releasing something into the world, and you're like, I really hope, really, you're praying that it's gonna
Yeah.
help people develop this language with God. And like what a beautiful gift, to people and to the world, because like I think about growing up and just kind of seeing prayer and just kind of having my relationship with it, and you think, man, I wouldn't trade that for the world. And so like the deep well that's in it,
Hmm.
and especially like from your unique upbringing, and you're like, man, if like one person or how many people can be transformed by that, and they can talk to God like that and be
Yeah.
reminded of that it's this simple, that's worth it. And it's like who knows what can happen with that. And it's just cool. I think we'll get to see more of God's activity because we'll be aware of it and how he's working.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
so
Yeah.
good.
Prayer changes everything.
It does. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Tanner, I think this has been just such a good conversation. But for our final thoughts, the podcast is all about carrying the gentle love of Jesus wherever we go. So, how are you actively doing that in this current season?
My wife and I, we get to lead a college community group in Nashville,
So fun.
and it is honestly the most fun. It's the best part of our week. Every Thursday night, we cram 20 something college kids into our very tiny house, and we just hang out, and they teach us so much
Mm,
about what it means to follow Jesus and what it means to be known by God. And yeah, it's such a sweet season. And the school year's almost over, which
yeah.
is such a bummer because like, all right, we'll see you guys in like 3 months, which is
Oh,
no
that's
fun.
so long. I mean,
Brutal. It's a long time.
it is, yeah, it's pretty brutal. Oh man, I remember, yeah, those breaks and going home, you're like, wait, is it time for school yet? Where are my people?
Yeah.
Yeah. But now you're an adult and you're like, wait, where are all the people who come to my house?
Where'd all the people go?
Where'd
Where's
they
our,
go?
yeah,
All
they're
the
the
fun
best.
stuff. Well, that's so fun. I love college ministry. I was very much involved in mine when I was in college, and so have a soft spot for that. And I think especially the next generation, like there's always something we could be learning. But I love that you have a small house and you're like, let's pack them in. Doesn't matter
Bring
what
them
needs
all in,
we'll have.
guys.
Bring them
Yep.
all in. So
It's great.
I
We
think
love
that's
it.
so cool, and just also such a good reminder to practice hospitality wherever we're at. I think that's really good.
Yeah.
So, Tanner, for friends who are new here, where can they purchase the book and continue to follow your journey, what you're doing?
Yes. You can get the book from Amazon or any like online realtor, um, retailer. Sorry.
Retailer.
I said realtor, like houses.
Yeah.
Realtors are not selling the book.
Yeah.
Retailers are.
Yeah.
Or you can find more information at it at writtentospeak.com, which is my website. And if you want to follow along with my work, writtentospeak.com, or just type in written to speak on Instagram or my name, Tanner Olson, Olson, just like it's spelled on the book.
Yeah.
And then you can find me there and connect. And yeah, I'd love to answer any questions you might have about the book. But I'm so happy to be a returning guest. What
Yeah.
an honor. I'm going
Oh,
for three, so I got to write another book so I can come back on.
yes. Yes.
Which good news.
Okay.
I'll be back on in February.
Okay,
So,
February. Okay, that's it. Awesome. We'll make it happen. And for our friends though, the book release date is the 28th. So a week, like 1 week from today is when it will release, but you can go
mhm.
order it today. So don't do
Pre-orders are
that.
great. Yes.
Pre-order it, buy it for the friends, even if you don't have kids, if you're the cool aunt like me, you can go do that and just buy it. And I think it's going to be a great resource. But Tanner, I'm so excited for this book and for the launch of it and just the work that you're doing. And I've so enjoyed this conversation. It's just been so fun. So thanks for being
Yeah. Thanks for hanging out with me. I just so honored to be here and I love the work that you're doing. So just keep doing it because it matters. It
here.
really does.
Well, thank you, Tanner. That means so much to me, so much. And friends, thank you for listening. Have a wonderful week and continue to carry the gentle love of Jesus wherever you go.